Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, Sir Azmi and fellow classmates. Imagine a fund established with a simple but ambitious mission to accelerate Malaysia's economic growth, attract global investment, and create opportunities for future generations. Now, imagine that the same fund becoming one of the largest financial scandals in modern history, involving billions of dollars, multiple countries, and years of international investigation. How did that happen? That question formed the heart of today's case study. My name is Athirah Binti Ismadol, and together with my group member, we will take you through the story of 1MDB scandal. But today, we are not here simply to revisit a corruption case. We are here to understand why it happened, what governance failure allowed it to happen, and more importantly, what lesson we must learn so history does not repeat itself. So let's begin. Every story has a beginning. Before we understand how the scandal unfolded, we first need to understand the journey we are about to take. Our presentation is divided into 6 sections. Think of it as following the path of our investigation. We begin with the introduction, where we establish why corruption is not just a legal issue, but a government's challenge affecting national worldwide. Next, we examine how 1MDB evolved from a national investment fund into international financial scandal. We then identify the ethical failures and governance weaknesses that made the misconduct possible. After that, we assess the impact, not only Malaysia's economy, but also on public trust, institution, and international reputation. We will then discuss the reform introduced after the scandal before concluding with the principles of sustainable integrity that every institution should uphold. Before we analyze the scandal itself, however, we first need to answer one important question. Why does corruption matter so much in today's world? Because corruption is no longer just a national issue. It has become a global concern. Today's financial crime rarely stops at national borders. Money can move across countries within seconds, making corruption far more complex than it was decades ago. That's why the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, or UNCAC, recognizes corruption as one of the greatest threats to good governance. It weakens institutions, undermines the rule of law, and gradually erodes public confidence in governments. The 1MDB scandal perfectly illustrates this reality. Although it began in Malaysia, investigations eventually expanded to countries such as United States, Switzerland, Singapore, and Luxembourg. What started as a domestic financial issue soon became an international investigation involving multiple jurisdictions. And that reminds us of an important lesson. When corruption crosses borders, integrity must do the same. International cooperation, transparency, and strong institutions are no longer optional. They are essential. Now that we understand why corruption is a global challenge, let's look at how 1MDB was first established and why its original objective appeared so promising. With that, I would like to invite Mr. Jemhi to continue our story.
Thank you, Athirah, for explaining the global significance of corruption and why the 1MDB case attracted international attention. To better understand how this scandal unfolded, let us first examine the origins of One Malaysia Development Berhad, or 1MDB, and how a fund established for national development eventually became one of the world's largest financial corruption scandals. 1MDB was established in 2009 as a government-owned strategic investments company under the Minister of Finance Incorporated. It originated from the Terengganu Investment Authority, known as TIA, before being reconstructed into 1MDB. The primary objective of 1MDB was to attract foreign investment, stimulate economic growth, and finance strategic sectors such as energy, real estate, and infrastructure. At the time, the initiative was viewed as an ambitious effort to position Malaysia as a competitive investment destination and accelerate national development. However, despite these promising objectives, concern gradually emerged regarding the company's financial management, government practice, and rapidly increasing debt levels. As this concern continued to grow, they eventually developed into a much larger issue that attracted both national and international attention. Let's now look at how the scandal unfolded. The turning point came when investigation discovered that the issue was not simply poor financial management but involved a complex network of financial misconduct. Large sums of money were diverted through shell companies, offshore bank accounts, and multiple international financial transactions. This sophisticated arrangement made it difficult to trace the movement of funds and delay detection by regulators. As investigation expanded, authorities from countries including the United States, Switzerland, Singapore, and Luxembourg become involved, transforming what began as a domestic financial issue into a global corruption investigation. This case demonstrated how financial crimes can easily cross national borders and require international cooperation to uncover the full extent of the misconduct. For the next slide, I would like to invite Muhammad Farhan to continue this.
Thank you, Jemhi. So, while the financial transactions were highly complex, many experts agree that the underlying problem was actually much deeper. So, behind every major corruption case are weaknesses in governance and ethical decision making. The 1MDB scandal was not only a financial crisis, but also a clear example of governance failure. One of the major ethical concerns was the abuse of entrusted power, where individuals responsible for managing public resources were alleged to have prioritized personal interests over the public interest. In addition, the concentration of decision-making authority, limited independent oversight, and weak accountability mechanism reduced the effectiveness of corporate governance. These weaknesses created an environment where unethical decisions should occur without timely detection or intervention. Therefore, the 1MDB scandal highlights an important lesson. Corruption is rarely caused by a single individual. Instead, it often develops when ethical leadership, transparency, accountability, and institutional oversight fail simultaneously. Okay, we have seen that weak governance and ethical failure created opportunities for corruption. The next question is, how were billions of dollars allegedly diverted without being detected at an early stage? To answer this, I will explain the money laundering mechanism involved in the 1MDB case before discussing its major impacts on Malaysia. So one of the reasons of the 1MDB scandal became an international case was the complexity of its financial transaction. Rather than transferring funds directly, the money was allegedly moved through several stages involving shell companies, offshore bank accounts, and multiple financial institutions across different countries. This process was designed to disguise the true origin and ownership of the funds, making the transaction much more difficult to trace. As illustrated in the diagram, the funds passes through numerous intermediary entities before being used to purchase luxury assets, real estates, artwork, and other high-value investment. This demonstrates that the money laundering is not a single transaction, but a careful planned process that exploits weaknesses in financial oversight and international regulatory system. This brings us to the next section of our presentation. Without further ado, I would like to invite Muhammad Fadhillah to take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Farhan. Beyond the financial transactions themselves, the consequences of the scandal extended far beyond the loss of public funds. The 1MDB scandal had wide-ranging consequences that affected almost every aspect of Malaysia governance. Economically, it weakened investor confidence and created concerns regarding the country's financial management. Politically, it contributed to declining public trust and became one of the major issues discussed during the 2018 general election. Institutionally, it exposed weakness in corporate governance, regulatory oversight, and accountability mechanism within public institutions. At the international level, the scandal attracted worldwide attention and affected Malaysia's reputation as a country committed to transparency and good governance. The 1MDB scandal highlighted the urgent need to strengthen the Malaysia's governance framework to prevent similar incidents in the future. As shown in this slide, 5 key reforms were introduced. This includes strengthening the independence of the Malaysia Anti-Corruption Commission, improving corporate governance, enhancing board independence, reinforcing internal control, and increasing parliamentary oversight. Together, this reform aims to improve transparency, accountability, and institutional integrity while ensuring that public resources are managed responsibly. Although no governance system can completely eliminate corruption, strong institutions and effective oversight can significantly reduce the risk and restore public confidence. An important question remains: what action were taken to prevent similar incidents from happening again? To answer this, I would like to invite Muhammad Rahimi to explain the governance reform, anti-corruption measure, and international cooperation that follow the 1MDB scandal.
Thank you, Fadhillah. Following the 1MDB scandals, one of national key priorities was to strengthen anti-corruption enforcement by improving the independence of its institutions. As shown in this slide, the reforms are closely aligned with the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, or UNCAC. Article 5 encourages countries to establish coordinated anti-corruption policies that promote integrity, transparency, and the rules of law, while Article 6 emphasizes the importance of independent anti-corruption agency that can carry out investigation without undue influence. In Malaysia, this is reflected in efforts to strengthen the roles of the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, or MACC, enabling it to investigate corruption cases more independently and effectively. Together, these measures reinforce public confidence and strengthen the country's overall anti-corruption framework. While strengthening enforcement is an important step, effective governance also depends on learning from past failure. Let's now look at the key lessons that 1MDB scandals has taught us about integrity and good governance. Besides strengthening anti-corruption enforcement, Malaysia also needs stronger corporate governance to prevent similar failures in the future. As shown in this comparison, the 1MDB structure concentrated multiple roles within the government, where it acts simultaneously as the owner, regulator, and policymaker. This concentration of power weakened independent oversight and created opportunities for conflict of interest. The proposed governance model addresses these weaknesses by clearing, separating institutional roles, strengthening board independence, improving parliamentary scrutiny, and implementing more transparent financial reporting together with stronger internal compliance systems. These reforms are essential to ensure that state-owned enterprises operate with greater accountability, transparency, and public trust. Therefore, effective prevention also requires international cooperation and coordinated asset recovery efforts. Let's now look at how global collaboration contributed to the 1MDB investigations. The 1MDB scandals also demonstrate that financial crimes today are transnational and cannot be addressed by one country alone. As shown in the slide, international cooperation play a crucial role in tracing illicit financial flow and recovering misappropriated assets. The U.S. Department of Justice Kleptocracy Initiative led one of the largest asset recovery investigations in its history, while financial regulators from countries such as Switzerland, Singapore, and Luxembourg work together to investigate cross-border transactions. Through these collaboration efforts, approximately $1.4 billion in recovered assets was successfully repatriated to Malaysia. In this case highlighted, effective anti-corruption efforts depend not only on strong domestic institutions, but also on the international cooperation, information sharing, and robust anti-money laundering compliance. In summary, the 1MDB scandals has provided valuable lessons for both Malaysia and the international community. To conclude our presentation, I would like to invite Mr. Muhammad Hafizi to represent the key lessons learned and the importance of building a sustainable culture of integrity. Thank you.
Now, let's look at the most important part of this case, the lesson we can learn from the 1MDB scandal. The 1MDB case shows us that fighting corruption is not only about catching offenders after the damage is done. The real challenge is preventing it from happening in the first place. The first lesson is internal integrity. This starts with leadership. Leaders who manage public funds must always put the public interest before personal or political interest. In the 1MDB case, investigation found that decision-making became highly concentrated, while check and balance were weakened. When leaders are not accountable, even large institutions can fail. The second element is good governance. Every organization, especially state-owned enterprise, need clear rules, independent boards, effective internal controls, and proper financial oversight. One of the major weaknesses identified in the 1MDB case was the overlap between ownership, policy making, and regulatory responsibilities, which reduce independent oversight and increase the risk of abuse of power. The second theme is external integrity. The first component is transparency. Transparent reporting, open disclosure, and public accountability help build trust and allow problems to be detected earlier. The lack of transparency in financial reporting and decision-making allowed the misuse of funds to continue for several years before it was exposed. Final lesson is international cooperation. The 1MDB scandal crossed many countries, involving banks, shell companies, and financial institutions around the world. Recovering the stolen assets was only possible because authorities from countries such as the United States, Switzerland, Singapore, and Luxembourg work together by sharing financial intelligence and coordinating investigation. So, the biggest lesson from 1MDB is very clear. To conclude, the 1MDB scandal is more than just a financial corruption case. It is an important lesson on why integrity, accountability, and good governance matter. From this case, we can see that weak governance, too much power in one place, and conflict of interest created opportunities for corruption. At the same time, poor transparency and weak oversight allowed these problems to become and continue for many years before they were discovered. After the scandals, Malaysia introduced several reforms. This includes strengthening the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, improving corporate governance in state-owned companies, increasing parliamentary oversight, and working with other countries to recover stolen assets. However, laws and new policies alone are not enough. Preventing corruption also depends on ethical leaders, transparent decision-making, and people who are willing to speak up when they see wrongdoing. In the end, preventing corruption is everyone's responsibility. The government, public institutions, private organizations, and public all have an important role in building a culture of integrity. If we learn from the mistake from the 1MDB case, we can help create a more transparent, accountable, and trustworthy society. And with that, that brings us to the end of our presentation on the 1MDB scandal. And we hope this presentation has helped you understand what happened in the 1MDB case, why it happened, and the lesson that Malaysia can learn from it. Thank you very much for your attention.